We will begin the next part of the Santa Ana, the people, the pueblo, and the history of Tamaya. Acknowledgements. The history of Santa Ana Pueblo is recorded in many documents, maps, and photographs, as well as in the oral tradition of Tamaya, the name of the pueblo in the people's language. However, in 1979, when the project began, this history was scattered among dozens of archives, libraries, and collections, with most of the materials located far from the pueblo and difficult for the non-specialist to use. Little had been done to record the wealth of information known to Pueblo elders or to catalog the documents stored in Pueblo files. Throughout this project, many people have collaborated to produce a tribal archive, an oral history collection, and a map series, as well as this text. These materials are now readily available for the first time to the people most vitally interested in Tamaya history. The funding that made this undertaking possible came from the National Endowment for the Humanities Grant number ES 00061790666 and from Santa Ana Pueblo. That could also be an I. Foremost among the contributors are Pueblo members and officials, without whose effort none of this would have come to be. We owe a great debt to the elders of Tamaya, who shared their knowledge in a series of taped interviews. Porfirio Montoya's detailed accounts of Amaya's origins, land use, traditions, ways, and 20th century history enrich this text at many points. Other elders interviewed included Leo Pina, Eligio Montoya, Luis Armijo, Lawrence Montoya, Clyde Leon, Alfonso Garcia, Alberto Montoya, Vincent Armijo, Roy Montoya, Andy Leon, Donna Pino, Ben Pina, Jose Ramon Sanchez, Felix Garcia, Herodora Montoya, and Cristo Garcia. Throughout the project, Pueblo officials, including Governor Sam Armijo, Lawrence Montoya, and Clyde Leon, Lieutenant Governor Roy Montoya, and many others have reviewed the materials, given research access to documents, offered support, and generously volunteered their time and expertise. Floyd Montoya, chosen to serve as the Pueblo historian for the project, has contributed in many essential ways. Doing initial research in the project has contributed in archives, helping to gather and identify photographs for the collection, participating in interviews, providing translations and reviewing the transcripts of tapes, developing initial base maps and reviewing revisions as the maps were prepared for the text, cataloging the documents in the tribal offices and adding them to the index, preparing an initial summary of the materials, and above all, helping all of the working on the project to understand what this history has meant to the people of Santa Ana. Several scholars have generously shared their expertise. Among them, Dr. Ward Allen Minge deserves special recognition. Dr. Minge translated Spanish history, shared his extensive knowledge of source materials, and offered many useful suggestions for the development of the archives, the map collection, and the manuscripts. Dr. Myra Allen Jenkins, an archivist of the New Mexico State Record Center and Archives in Santa Fe, also suggested useful sources and approaches, clarified points of confusion, made available both archival materials and her own research, and offered her scholarly advice. Throughout the project, the American West Center of the University of Utah has provided technical assistance and advice. Dr. Floyd A. O'Neill and Dr. Gregory C. Thompson contributed to the initial research and continually provide advice, direction, and encouragement. The materials collected for the Pueblo were indexed by John C. Chinick under the direction of Laura Bayer, who prepared a user's guide to the archive. Jenny Young shot a series of Tamaya and Ranchito to supplement the historic photographs collected for the archives. Greg White drew the initial maps. The maps that appear here were developed by the authors, drawn by Catherine J. Patillo, and reviewed by Pueblo officials, with the assistance of Gregory C. Thompson. Additional research was done by John C. Chinick, Laura Bayer, and David Rich Lewis. Patiently and expertly, Tammy Taylor and Avis Legler undertook the task of typing and retyping the thousands of pages of transcripts, index cards, and manuscript drafts. At archives throughout the country, many individuals generously gave their time to the research for this project. Two deserve special recognition: Dr. Myra Allen Jenkins, archivist of the New Mexico State Record Center and Archives, and Richard Crawford of the National Archives. We are no less indebted to the individuals on the staffs of the National Archives, Washington, D.C., the Federal Record Center, Denver, the New Mexico State Record Center and Archives, Santa Fe, the Bureau of Indian Affairs Office, Southern Pueblo Agency, Albuquerque, the Museum of New Mexico, Santa Fe, the Museum of the American Indian, New York, the Library of Congress, Map Division, Alexandria, Virginia, and the libraries of the University of New Mexico, the University of Utah, Brigham Young University, the Utah State University. Although we cannot list the names of the individual staff members here, their contributions will be reflected not only in this text, but in the work of the scholars who use the Santa Ana tribal archives for generations to come. This manuscript was originally completed in 1983, the copy, which had suffered some degeneration over the years, was revised for publication in 1992. The decision was made at the time not to attempt to update the materials to reflect the intervening years of scholarship and the most recent history of the Pueblo, except in the instance of cases recently decided that involved Pueblo lands and waters, and recent purchases that have affected the Pueblo's current land holdings. Final corrections were completed by Laura Baylor with the assistance of Dr. Floyd A. O'Neill, now director of the American West Center, and reviewed by Pueblo officials. In addition to renewing our thanks to those originally involved, many of whom have moved to a new location and positions, we would like to extend our thanks to the Richard Hayes, attorney of the Pueblo of Santa Ana, who generously shared materials developed by his office with the assistance of Ward Allen Meach, Myra Allen Jenkins, and David H. Snow in connection with the Baca case, and the Winston Erickson, and to Winston Erickson, who prepared an additional map showing the Ranchito purchases along the Rio Grande. To all of those who have contributed to the making of this book, we extend our thanks and apologies for any errors, oversights, and weaknesses in this manuscript, which should not reflect in any way on their knowledge, scholarship, and generosity. Next reading will be the preface. Thank you for joining me.